a couple of reasons why I'm delighted to be here. I've been in the design and innovation game for about 25 years now. And I can tell you that much of the time, the best ideas, the most surprising left field ideas, come from small companies, they come from entrepreneurs, they come from people that actually think differently and who are able to think in a very agile way. It's a fact that the bigger a company gets, the more difficult it finds it to innovate, for lots of different reasons that I won't go into now. So to be in a position that we can solve some of the big problems that the world's got actually relies on small entrepreneurial companies. Because we all know that our governments certainly aren't going to fix it, ever, and some bigger companies actually end up being too comfortable to do new things. So all of you are desperately important, not just for what the future is going to be in this country, but globally. So that's the reason that I'm delighted to be here. A couple of basic things to begin with. The innovation word, if you ask me, has become so overused that lots and lots of people across every part of society have forgotten what it means. Innovation is fundamentally about making things better, not just different. But often people forget that fact. Innovation is about making something better. For people, for business, for the world. It doesn't really matter. The next question, against the background of the title for this event, which is Borderless Innovation, is, yeah, it's fine if you've got an innovation that impacts 3 people, 5, 10, 15 people. If it's to become borderless, you need to ask yourself the question, how many people is this innovation going to benefit, right? So there is an issue to do with scale if your ambition is to take your innovation global. So in my view, a good definition of borderless innovation is an innovation that is going to be better for everybody. Sounds like a very easy thing to say, but it's an extremely difficult thing to do, as we know. So the previous conversation highlighted the fact that even within India itself, there is such a huge diversity of attitude, opinion, taste, what have you. Defining something that is going to be loved, a product or a service that's going to be loved by everybody in this country, never mind globally, is actually a big challenge. People often ask me, give me some examples of great innovation. And some people will charge towards some amazing technology story, right? But I often give the example of the Post-it, okay? Because it's something that everybody can use, everybody understands instantly, and actually it can be used in so many different ways. And the final point about the Post-it is actually it's a very low-risk innovation. It's a piece of paper with a bit of glue in a different place. So the reason I give this example is try and focus your minds from a design point of view on simplifying whatever it is that your offer is. Okay? That's the first point. The second thing that design does, as opposed to technology or even business or business modeling, is it can help a company, particularly a small company, crystallize the vision of what it is that you're going to do. What I've heard over and over again this morning is that if you want to get a company off the ground or a new product off the ground, actually it has to be very long term. You've got to think long term. And one of the things that design can do is bring a crystallization of that business. Maybe part of what you're thinking about is a business model, part of it is a service model, there's some technology in there. Bringing all that together in a way that everybody on the team, in the company, can really focus on what it is you're trying to do is something that design does extremely well. If I told somebody that I want you to add value with a coffee cup, 2 sugar cubes and a spoon, you might wonder how the hell you're going to do that. But this image shows you that even with some very simple elements, you can produce something that's really compelling and beautiful. So design is able to bring a whole bunch of disparate information together and put it in a way that will appeal to people, that everyone can understand. But at the same time, I think design potentially and design thinking has been oversold in the past 5 or 10 years. Design is not a magic wand. And the reason that the title of this little talk is Get Design Involved at the Beginning is because if you think design is just about style and image, if you work in website or mobile applications, if it's just to do with color and font, then you're massively underutilizing the power of design. Design actually runs across pretty much everything in the ecosystem of your company. And certainly design thinking should. So being aware of that and getting it in at the very beginning of what it is you're doing is desperately important. Okay? What is the point? I heard a comment in the coffee room earlier from somebody saying, yeah, design isn't really taken seriously in India because it costs too much. There's too many other things ahead of design that are perceived to be more important. So the tendency is that you sprinkle a bit of design on whatever it is you're doing at the very end. And in fact, the point of design is it can help optimize every part of your business, even if it's a very small business. So one of the, I guess, the fundamentals about design as a discipline is that it's humanist. It's about understanding people. And in my view, a mistake that a lot of startups make is they become so blinkered either with the technology that they've developed or the product that they've developed, and they forget to be absolutely objective about who their customer is and really deeply understand the difference between old, young, male, female, what have you. So the tendency is to get on with developing the product and not pause for a moment and think deeply about your end customer, even if it's a B2B business. And design research and design thinking is very good at uncovering the nuances of what people want from your product or service. On this theme of designers being humanists, of course they understand technology, they understand a bit about business, but ultimately we're about delivering or making things better for people. So one of my leitmotifs has always been that you should put anthropology before technology, even if you're in a tech company. So if you look at the slide on the left there, in terms of what people want from a product or service, even if we just chop the world in half and look at the difference between men and women, you will find that there are huge differences in the way that people want to interact with products or services. Yeah? Often, even something as basic as that is forgotten. So, in a sense, design should be, having a designer on your team should become your consumer champion. In the middle of all the other problems with budgets and technology and this, that, and the other, having somebody that reminds you who your end consumer is desperately important. Benchmarking. Before you launch your billion-dollar product to the market, you better make sure that you're very clear globally what everyone else is doing. And that isn't just from a tech platform point of view, that's from a usability point of view, right? Does it resonate emotionally with your end users? And again, undertaking benchmarking in the right way, the tech part of it is one thing, but the design part of it is another, is really important so you don't duplicate or waste your valuable resource doing something that actually already exists in the market. Another, sadly, mistake that gets repeated over and over again is that people, in this case it's an automotive example, people are so desperate to freeze the technology bit of what they're doing without having a vision of where the design part is going to fit in. Now, if you look at the, frankly, rather hideous, once the architecture of that is frozen, there isn't a cat in hell's chance of modifying that significantly. So having spent all the money on the tech bit of it, suddenly somebody says, actually, no one likes the design. Can we modify it at the end of the process? And the answer is no, you can't. So back to the point about design not being a magic wand, if you incorporate the design element of what you want to do at the very beginning, this is a physical example, but it's absolutely true of interface, all of the UX and HMI work that my team does. There's lots of examples where clients have even defined a screen layout that actually won't let them do anything beautiful later in the process. So don't freeze the technology before you're pretty clear what the design has to be. This is a beautiful example, and I'm sorry, Microsoft and Ford. In fact, there's lots of reasons for showing this slide. A titan like Microsoft meets a titan called Ford Motor Company, and they produce an in-vehicle interface that is so smarty pants that nobody can use the damn thing. In fact, sadly, some people, I think, are going to sue Ford because what they're saying is the thing is so awful that it distracts them while they're driving, okay? Now, if you ask me, If there were designers involved in that program, they should have been shot or fired, at least. And if there had been some better design involvement, this thing would never have got launched the way it is. So you look at the spreadsheet of all the specs, and it's absolutely, this interface rocks. It does everything. But the human being who's got to interface with it cannot use it. So by contrast, an example of something that looks more like a mobile phone interface that is going to get put into a vehicle, we hope, fairly soon. And it's utterly simple and utterly usable. So I think you get the point. Designers love this term, God is in the detail, but the detail, as insofar as possible, needs to be there from day one. So if you know that there's a showstopper, let's say, to do with your product or your service, the sooner you think about the real detail of what you're going to deliver, the better. Because once again, further down the line, if there are things that you want to do, you may find that it ends up being impossible because the development process has gone too far. A couple of other points to make. It's really important that there is an emotional component to what it is that you're doing. So, of course, you'll speak to customers, you'll get specs, you'll build whatever product or service you're going to build. But if there isn't an emotional component to it, and you don't allow a member of your team to have a kind of emotional input to your product, then, in my view, it won't be as successful as it would have been. So, kind of simple example again. Who would spend money on, spend hundreds of millions or billions of dollars developing a vehicle where there isn't enough room in the back for golf clubs and basically there's no headroom, okay? The fact is, the emotional, in this case the Range Rover Evoque, managed to win out over all of those factors. So leave yourselves time to take an emotional approach to what you're doing, as much as a functional or engineering approach, because some very surprising things can happen that on the face of it, if you write it down on a bit of paper, wouldn't make sense. But in this case, you've got a runaway success. I think this is Priyanka Chopra, and I haven't paid any money to use her picture, so I might get sued. Further down the development process, and this is a really critical point in my view. So you've got some investors on board. There's a product that everybody thinks is going to be amazing, that looks beautiful, that functions perfectly, okay? And then on the journey from that original vision to actually launching something, some kind of weird things can begin to happen, right? So this is, put it another way, this is called death of 1,000 cuts. All those little compromises, all those little tweaks and changes that in the course of the design process, the engineering process, mean that you might end up with something that you didn't really want in the first place. So the point here, having a designer or applying design thinking all the way through the process to hang on to that original vision in its purest form is desperately important. Because, I was lined up to go out on a date with her, and then 6 months later, somebody different turned up. So that analogy is about making sure you don't allow the original vision of what you're doing to be, tweaked and modified and bashed to the point that you end up with something that isn't just a few % less good, it might be complete junk. And in my career, I've also seen that happen. So cut some cost here, take that functionality out, do this, that, and the other, and maybe you end up with nothing. So design is very good at helping your business with this, which is in the middle of the very, very difficult process of getting something new off the ground. Design can help you remind yourself why you did it in the first place, what the point of difference was, what the real innovation was, what your original customers wanted, and where the compromises, let's say, lie that you shouldn't make. Sometimes there are, of course, any product development needs compromise, but you need to spot the compromises that are going to completely destroy what it was you wanted to do in the first place. And this is my final slide. At Tata Elxsi, we hope, as much as doing this, we also walk the walk. So we have a program called Incubate, where we ourselves are trying to help smaller companies, entrepreneurs, startups to build their business. But if any of you are interested in getting in touch with us to find out how we can help your business, then please feel free. And I think that's about it from me. Thank you.